Aloha and welcome to Thumbing Through Yesterday, the podcast where we take our favorite books off the shelves, blow the dust off them, and remind ourselves why it is we love them so. My name's Tom Galley, and joining me today we've got Tony Pasculi.
Thanks, Tom.
And what's in store for us today?
Today we are reading one of my favorite childhood books, The Great Brain by John D. Fitzgerald.
The Great Brain. I have never heard of this before. This was really entertaining.
It's a lot of fun. It kind of falls into the same category as books like The Mad Scientist Club or Encyclopedia Brown, if that could be a category. Yeah. It's a series. There's 7, 8 of these books. There's a ridiculous amount. And they center around a guy named Tom Fitzgerald, who has a great brain, but also has a money-loving heart.
I was really quite stunned at how obsessed he was with money. Yeah. Everything was about pennies. Absolutely everything was about pennies. Yeah. Which it's also hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that at one point in time a penny was
a significant amount of money.
So, yeah, a penny had value.
Yeah, so I love this book as a kid. I read all of them. I read them every 10 years, I think. I just read them all again because I love them so much. Unfortunately, when I was a kid, I took all the wrong lessons from this book. I wanted to be just like Tom, and I wanted to, I like to think of myself as smarter than a lot of people around me, and I wanted to use that to make money off of them somehow, and that was is the opposite lesson of the book. Yeah.
Well, that's certainly his behavior. Now, Tom is the middle of 3 boys, right?
Yes. Yeah. There's Seth, there's Tom, and there's JD, who's the narrator.
Yeah. And poor JD. Oh, poor JD. JD has got no clue what's really going on, and he thinks he does.
He gets better through the rest of the book.
Well, one would think so,
yeah.
But he's got, there's one of the few things I highlighted here. This is JD reflecting on the fact that Tom has given him what seems like an honest choice. And he even says, with his great brain, I knew he could have influenced me, but he didn't even try. He had treated me as an equal and left the decision strictly up to me.
Yeah.
This is the same person that will actually walk up to a 3-card Monte table believing they've got a chance at winning.
Well, that's sort of the point. Is that JD has a great heart and does not have a money-loving brain. He doesn't have a big brain. Yeah. So kids, if you're gonna read The Great Brain at home, JD is your hero, not Tom. Take your cues from JD. Yeah. But certainly Tom is the driver of the action, the one that creates all the excitement. He's the one whose adventures you follow. He is a fascinating character. Yeah. Well,
I love the fact that he self-acknowledges he is smarter than anyone else. He has the great brain. And this is self-referential. Other people don't say it about him. He says it about himself, and he threatens people with it. I will put my great brain to the problem of belittling you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which he does. He exacts revenge for imagined slights of the new teacher, and gets him fired for being an alcoholic when he's not an alcoholic, and then is completely taken aback, when his dad says, "What a despicable thing!" He's like, how can this be despicable? He embarrassed me. I got back at him. What's wrong with this?
Yeah, he doesn't have and it's surprising, he does not have much of a moral compass at all. He comes from a very religious family who are not at all unclear about what their expectations are for correct behavior. And Tom, much like Tom Sawyer, it's a lot of parallels, I think, with Tom Sawyer. He is untamable. He is who he is, and there's just, all you can do is sort of work around him. Yeah.
Yeah, and when we see that again, when the kids get lost in the mine, he puts his great brain to the problem of finding them, not because they're kids lost in a mine, but because there's a breeding opportunity with dogs for him to make, I think it was $5.
Yeah.
Which, if you're playing for pennies, $5 would be a phenomenal amount of money, but.
And it's interesting because it's not like his family is hurting for money. The father runs the local newspaper. and he always seems to have money available to satisfy his own whims. Like,
my God, they're putting in an indoor water closet.
Yes. The very first chapter is the magical water closet, because the father he's that guy who always has to have the new gadget, and this is a time when no one had indoor plumbing, and so he's the first in town to get an indoor toilet. And people are just like, he's a madman.
But why would you have that in your house? It's going to stink up the whole place.
Yeah.
But the great brain puts himself to work, as the handyman is digging the hole for, I guess, what's going to be the septic tank ultimately.
Yeah.
He's charging admission. He's charging kids a penny a piece to come and watch the guy dig a hole.
There's something also, again, paralleling with Tom Sawyer, there's something I love about this, the innocence of this time where that was considered wild entertainment that you would pay hard money for is to go and watch someone dig a hole in someone else's yard.
I know it. And then, when he realizes, so the first time he does this, Mom happens to be making cookies. And seeing kids on the porch, she supplies them with cookies.
Because she's a host, of course.
Yeah. So he sends the younger son out to recruit more people the next day. But Mom sees what's going on and refuses to bake cookies. So now he has to buy cookies because he's promised cookies as part of the admission price. And, watching him count his pennies and the shenanigans he shuffles, and then Mom figures out what's going on, makes him pay them back.
Yeah.
When he gets overcharged, he ends up with customers claiming they haven't been paid back, and he's out of pennies, right? He wants to take it from it's JD.
One of the few times where his scheme does not work out well for him financially, but over the course of the books, he does very, very well for himself. Occasionally there's a setback, but oh my goodness.
Well, it seems like if Mom's involved, there's a setback.
Yeah.
Because she seems to be trying, she sees what's going on and is trying to teach him a lesson, but the lesson he's learning is not the one she's selling.
The wrong lesson. Yeah. So another thing I like about this book is how specific it is, and it seems like it's clearly drawn from life, which it turns out, yes, it is. That John D. Fitzgerald was writing about his own family. So this is, they could have set this anywhere. It could have been set in some random town in California, but it's set in a town in Utah, which is 80% Mormon, and this particular family happens to be Christian. This town demographics are 20% Christian, 80% Mormon, and then later in chapter 3, 1 Jew. So, and that is just so specific and just like drives so much of this sort of character and flavor of the book. It's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me as a writer, it's always a great example of how, making things specific is so much more interesting than making them generic. Yeah. He could have kept this generic and it would have lost so much by it. And the family, I love this family too. Right, Seth is there. He's a character. He exists, but he barely exists in this first book.
He barely exists. Yeah. He intervenes at some point, I think.
Yeah. He does play into later books a little bit more, but not much. But the parents, oh my goodness, the parents remind me of my parents. Their ultimate punishment, they do punish Tom by like taking money away from him, making pay things back, doing extra chores, that sort of thing. But if you really cross the line, the punishment is the silent treatment, in which they just don't talk to you. And then it's just like, it's the worst thing. Yeah, it's the worst thing you can imagine. Yeah.
I thought it was just so charming. One of the things that JD complains about is the fact that he never got to get sick first. And finally he gets the opportunity to get sick first so that he can infect his brothers and he can get well first and lord it over them, the fact that he's well.
Yes, but he picked the wrong disease.
It did not go as planned.
So that's the thing that my family did. I had chicken pox as a kid. And so my parents made sure, I had 3 sisters, made sure that all 3 of my sisters got chicken pox at the same time. They just wanted to get it over with. So they deliberately infected my sisters with chickenpox by making sure that we were all hanging out together. And I can't imagine a family doing that today.
It was commonplace, once upon a time. To my knowledge, I've never had chickenpox, but I knew kids that had chickenpox and had parents send their kids over to get chickenpox. Yeah. And, maybe at some level I felt left out of that, but now it just...
You missed nothing.
It does seem, what are you thinking? I suppose if it's inevitable, right? If they're looking, it's inevitable these kids are going to get this. It's a childhood disease.
Yeah.
At the time, apparently nobody had heard of shingles, so there was no idea that there would be repercussions down the road.
Yeah. That's, I just got my first shingles shot the other day. That's a nasty shot, by the way.
Is it?
It is unpleasant. That is worse than the COVID vaccine. Yeah.
Well, something to look forward to.
Yay. Rather that than shingles, though. I hear shingles is bad news. Yeah. So when and my sisters love to remind me of this, when I had chickenpox, I had a very, very mild case. My sisters all got it much, much worse than me. So I was in the position that Tom was of just being like free and being able to do whatever I wanted. My sisters were suffering worse than I ever did. I was not the jerk that Tom, I hope, I don't know if my sisters listen to this podcast. I hope I was not the big jerk that Tom was. But yeah, they paid the price for my chicken pox. Yeah.
Tom lorded it. Yeah.
He did. He's a tiny little sociopath.
Yes, he is. Oh, and this is just another thing I highlight. I just thought it was delightful, though. I don't even know which kid is speaking. I think it's got to be JD. But he says, after all, there is nothing as tolerant and understanding as a kid you can whip. And I think this is part of the, he's talking about the new kid,
Basil,
the Greek kid.
Yeah.
Can't fight. And, he's clearly the bottom of the violence dog pile, no matter how you slice it, and he's reflecting on his own life. He picked a kid and got beat up by him, but he kept coming back until eventually he could beat the other kid up.
Yeah, that's one of the lessons that Tom has to teach him. I believe he charges his father money to take this kid under his wing and teach him how to be an American kid. But one of the first lessons he gives him is how to fight, because he doesn't have this tradition that you fight other kids for playground dominance.
Yep.
And at this time, and again, this is kind of horrifying in modern times. I can't imagine anybody approving of their kids going out and whipping other kids. But I grew up when this was still kind of a thing. Yeah, if you don't fight for your spot on the playground, you're gonna suffer. Yeah.
And then it turns out wrestling saves the day.
Yes.
Yeah. The poor little kid doesn't know how to fight, but it turns out he is really good at wrestling. All he has to do is close ground. And I don't know that I approve of the lessons taught there, but he overcame. He saw what he wanted to become, and he became it. And he did become it because of Tom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whatever payment Tom was getting. Yeah. But that comes back around. It's Andy, I think is the kid's name, who loses his leg, right?
Right, yeah.
And it's not good. But Andy's father goes so far as to declare him worthless.
Yeah.
Right. He can't do chores. He can't. He is worthless. And Andy.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Andy tries to kill himself.
And John is going to help him.
Yeah.
Because he figures that's what he wants, and he's trying to be a good friend.
I'm going to help him kill himself.
Ties him in a sack and throws him in the river. Oh, that was hard to read.
Yeah, it really was, and then, well, the water was cold, so of course he struggles, and the knot wasn't very good, so he gets out. So they have to come up with a plan B to try again, Yeah. And then Tom intervenes. He sets his great brain to the problem of proving the kid's not worthless.
Yeah. And again, charges the father money for it. Yeah.
He agrees to charge the father money for it, right? Yeah. But this is where we see.
Is this the last chapter?
Yeah. This is the turn. We actually see him decline the payment, and not only that, we see him give away his cherished erector set, which he had wheedled from, as I recall, JD as the penance for the sick episode.
I hate to disappoint you, but there are 7 more books.
I saw that when I was reading, right? When I went on the Amazon store to buy the Kindle, it's like, series 1 of 8 or 1 of 7. I was like, sigh.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't stick. And it's, and it's nice when he thought he was only going to write 1. It's a nice sort of button at the end of the first book, but it is a little bit contrived. It's a little bit Christmas Carol.
I found myself setting the book down and thinking, it's not going to this is not actually, it's a short-term thing. Or it wouldn't have surprised me if it's actually part of a longer con.
It's very astute. It wasn't part of a con, but it was a momentary lapse on his part. And he does sort of improve throughout the book, or throughout the series, but he's, this is going to be a problem for him for the rest of his life, that he has a great brain and a money-loving heart. Yeah. So
7 more books, huh? Or 6 more books?
6 or 7, I forget the count. Yeah. Another thing that's fun about this book and this whole series, so I love the setting, I love the family, I love the main character. Well, he's sort of the main character, is so action oriented. He makes things happen. Like, he goes away to school at one point in one of the books, and even though he's ripped off every kid in town, everybody misses having him around because life is boring without him. Even though there's not a kid in town who hasn't lost money to him through some sort of scam, they still want him to come back and make life interesting.
That's how this book ends, right? Yeah. Once he has his turn of heart, the summer got boring. So JD stops telling. There's nothing left to tell. Poof, the book just stops. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could see that. I could see him having that kind of effect, because certainly everybody would have to know who he was, because he would not allow anybody not to.
Yeah.
Because everyone out there potentially has a penny in their pocket.
Yeah. He's definitely a high agency individual. Yeah. The other thing that's fun is that the book is very episodic in a way that's not annoying. Like, every chapter is almost self-contained. It's a great book to read a chapter at a time. Because every chapter is its own little story. It's like a procedural, like you're watching a series. It's like, okay, every episode's going to start off with a dead body. If it's CSI, every chapter is going to start off with, what's the scam this time? Yeah.
It reminded me just a little bit of the Patrick McManus reread, just from that, and that it's, there is an arc. It does move forward as a whole, but each individual piece is its own vignette.
Yeah. So again, love this series. I don't remember when I first read them. I think I was relatively young, but I have read them so many times since that I just can't remember at first. I have them all in paperback. I have them all on Kindle now too. And again, I'm always happy when I realize enough time has gone by that I can read them all again. Huh? Yes. Yeah.
So they're holding up well then, you would say? For
me, yeah. Because they're right in line with my expectations. I'm not, when I pick up The Great Brain, I'm not picking up Shakespeare. That's not what I'm looking for. That's not the experience I'm looking for. I'm just looking for sort of a light entertainment that is also, there's a bit of intellectual intrigue with the scams and the way he pulls them off, and there's also a bit of wholesomeness and sentimentality in the lens of JD, the narrator, that appeals to me also. So it's just I think I find them a delightful read.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing this with me. It's definitely something that would never have fallen across my radar otherwise.
Apparently not. So now I have to ask, are you an Encyclopedia Brown fan?
Well, I read, as far as I know, all of the Encyclopedia Brown that existed at the time I would have been reading such things.
Yeah. Okay. So I think those are not as compelling as the Great Brain books, because there's less of that emotional resonance. It's strictly about the scheme.
Bugs
and the resolution. Yeah, Bugs meaning. There was also a series of books called The Mad Scientist Club. Did you read those?
Nope, I did not know those.
And the Three Investigators series.
That doesn't sound familiar either.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, maybe they'll pop up in the podcast someday. Yeah.
Plenty to look forward to.
All right. Well, that's what I got for this. So what's next?
We're going to one of my favorites on my dystopian reading list. We're going to go see The Brave New World.
Oh, Brave New World that has such people in it.
Indeed.
Okay. Yeah, that should be fun.
See you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.